Imposing rules on culture is the quickest way to create counterculture. The perfect example of this is the art of Robert Crumb, starting with the Zap Comix, which began their run in 1968. Crumb is often dubbed the Father of Underground Comix, a mantle that he neither sought nor fully accepted. Look through his collection and you see sexual frustration, disdain for pop culture, and a disregard for political correctness. It's a glimpse into the dark corners of another man's mind, and, above all, honest, something many people would say mainstream culture was not in the 1950s. To understand his impact, you have to understand Crumb growing up in the 50s and 60s. It was nuclear family and McCarthyism at its peak, a veneer across social culture. Step out of line and you were a deviant. US culture had become characterized by social conservatism and materialism. Sexual taboos and juvenile delinquency were hot topics, marking an entire generation and laying the groundwork for the beatnik and free love revolution of the 1960s. Censorship made its way into the comic book industry in 1954, when 80% of kids were reading comic books. As a reaction to the increasingly sexualized horror and crime genres, Congress applied pressure to the industry, which resulted in the Comics Code Authority to avoid government censorship. Without the CCA's stamp of approval, you weren't carried in comic book stores, and you couldn't find a publisher, edging out smaller artists, but leaving industry icons like Marvel and Disney largely untouched. The CCA ruled the industry for 10 years, leaving self-publishers and those who didn't meet the CCA's criteria to make do with small runs that rarely saw the light of day. Enter a young greeting card illustrator, Robert Crumb, who moved to the Haight District of San Francisco on a whim. Zap No. 1 hit the streets in 1968, famously sold from a baby carriage by Crumb and his wife on the corner of Haight and Ashbury. Zap blended together an established visual language, strips and panels, with scandalous stories and gag lines that had been banned for 10 years from mainstream comics. Every panel was satire. It was a middle finger to censorship, including self-censorship. No topic or taboo was off limits. It was artistic catharsis, Crumb's thoughts and vices laid out for the world to see, resulting in a radical departure from the norm. As mainstream comics depicted larger and larger external forces, such as gods, space exploration, and communism, Crumb explored internal forces, such as self-doubt, questions about the meaning of life, and being a social outcast. What came to define the Zap series, and underground comics in general, was a focus on the forbidden, and a psychedelic art style to back it up. It's no surprise that Zap's largest reader base identified with a free love campaign in the civil rights movement. After the first issue of Zap, the comic became a collaboration between Crumb and 3 other giants of underground artwork. This quartet would launch Zap into every head shop on the East and West Coast, resulting in issues 3 and 4 selling 50,000 on their first print. Zap continued to run for 27 years, with the final publication, Zap No. 16, coming out in November 2014. The honesty with which Crumb delivered his message made him an icon for an entire generation of rebellious youth. This video was made possible thanks to both R. Crumb and Keep On Truckin' Apparel, which has had a license to screen print R. Crumb's artwork since 2009. If you want to support independent business, if you want to support R. Crumb, visit them at www.keepontruckinapparel.com.